My name is Mazwema Chola. I'm from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. We develop leaders, we empower leaders, we produce world-class leaders, and we do that in different formats. One of the ways that we do is these master classes that we have every Wednesdays. We are having these webinars. It's leaders talking to other leaders. It's leaders inspiring other leaders, because when we come here, we are come here to be inspired, to be encouraged, to be corrected, to be admonished. As leaders, because leadership, it's a journey, as we always say here. Leadership is not a destination. As long as you want to be a great leader, you've got to constantly develop yourself until you go to the grave. There's not a time where you'll say, I've arrived, because indeed, you'll never arrive while you stood here at this planet Earth. So yeah, when we meet here, we meet to learn from each other, to unlearn, to relearn, and to co-learn from others as leaders. And it's so wonderful that really every Wednesdays we converge here as leaders and we learn a lot from each other. Those people who have been coming here every Wednesday, they will tell you that they've learned a lot. And there's no way you'll attend this session and you'll be or you'll remain the same, or you won't want to come back again, because indeed they are very contagious. You come, you listen to these great leaders. Next week, the others, someone else will come. Another week, someone else will come. Yes, you just talk leadership, because leadership is everything. And everything is leadership. Without leadership, there's nothing we can do. You start by leading yourself first. So even before we can talk about leading other people or leading big institutions or organizations or anything, you start with you first. There is a book I wrote many years ago, The Power of Leader, or The Power of Self-Leadership. And in that, I'm arguing that the most difficult person to lead is yourself. Once you master yourself, then it's really easy to lead others. So our families, if are well led, would be good families. Our communities, our institutions, our countries, our nations. So that is why we meet here. We are leaders. People who meet here, or people who come here, are leaders from all walks of life. And really, because they realize that by coming here, that is when we really inspire each other and encourage each other, as I said. Tonight, we are discussing a very important topic. What kind of leadership do we need to develop our continent? There was a time last year we had one of the speaker, professor from Germany, Professor Zide, will remember him, who tackled this. I think it was Kyo Vadis, Africa. Where are you going? What is happening with you, Africa? So it's so important, it's so needed that we need to revisit and come again and discuss about this topic, because this is our continent, and we must make sure that it works. So tonight, that's the topic, and I invite all of you to participate. But we give the speaker first to address us, and then after that we come to a discussion or conversation. So welcome to our members, to our regulars, men and women who are here almost every Wednesdays or as often as they can. We learn a lot from you. We've got academics from different universities or institutions. We've got politicians, we've got members of the media, we've got executives from public sector, from private sector, we've got community leaders, religious leaders, professionals from all walks of life. They are here or they come to this platform where we really learn from each other. Tonight, I want to introduce my dear friend. A friend of mine is not a stranger in this platform. He has addressed us before, and I was so glad that when I engaged him in the midst of his busy schedule, he was able to find time or to accommodate us to address us. A very dear friend of mine, a brother of mine, very humble leader, someone who has, many people who respect him, and of course, already we all respect him. He runs a very big institution. He has trained, he has produced so many leaders, so many CAs, so many accountants. So I don't know, we call them auditors, but when you call this man, it's a brand himself, my brother Victor. So I'm so glad that, as I said, he already managed to find time to be with us tonight. He is the Chief Executive Officer of SNG Grant Thornton. So some of you know that it evolved from so many companies or names, and he has always been at the helm of it until now. He's still there, and then we are so glad that he's here. Victor, my brother, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are so looking forward to hear from you. But really personally, I just want to thank you for your humility, for availing yourself. Everyone who's here knows how busy you are, but you managed to be with us. This is not the first time we are here. You've been addressed. You've been addressed us before. So the platform is still the same. Someone asked me when few weeks ago, it's still the same, the format. When I came there were so many professors and doctors and so many academics. Still, they said, no, man, these are just leaders. These are very humble people, leaders. We always just learn from each other. But thanks, my brother. As I said that last time, we learned a lot from you, even now. And thank you. I mean, whether you attend our sessions or not, but I know that you are always following us, and you're always the friend and partner of Wild. So over to you, Bra Victor. What kind of leadership really do we need to develop this continent? The continent Al-Kebulan. I see a name there. Oh, is that Ayanda Gwabi? He uses the original name of Africa, which is used to be called Al-Kebulan. So thank you, sir. Over to you, my brother. Over to you, Victor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prof. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. You're so kind, and thank you very much, Prof, for inviting me to participate in this most esteemed platform. Prof, I commend you for your dedication and your fortitude in sustaining and keeping the platform alive for such a long time. As you said, I did participate in the platform. That's a while back, but I'm glad to see that the platform still stands strong. More than ever, Prof, we need platforms like this to engage on important matters that are crucial for advancing the progress and the growth of our nation, advancing it to its potential. Because I think as we sit here, we look at South Africa Inc., we look at the continent Africa, we not anywhere close to operating at our potential. And yes, you said everything is leadership. It's about leadership, and that will take us to perform to our potential, the lovely continent of Africa. I am indeed honored by this opportunity to engage with distinguished colleagues that are on the platform. I don't know, Prof, if you are aware, I'm an aspiring scholar myself. So I'm working hard to really get to that level. And then I think part of this engagement is my growth journey in that sphere. So earlier this year, in January, Prof, around January, yes, there was an article published in The Economist magazine. It was a special feature on Africa. The feature was headlined, I quote, "The economic gap between Africa and the rest of the world is growing." The same article continued to say that, I quote again, by 2030, Africans will make up 80% of the world's poor, close quote. Prof, this is a deeply sobering prediction. It's a prediction that should give us all pause. The pertinent question we should ask ourselves is, how can this be when Africa is so endowed with richness of natural resources and with human capital? This situation presents a serious contradiction. It presents a paradox that is yet to be addressed in our post-colonial dispensation. This prediction, I'm sure you'd agree with me, is deeply unsettling and thus does not sit well with us. And I'm sure it does not sit well with everyone that is on the call tonight. Something drastic needs to be done. Something drastic needs to be done to ensure that the prediction does not become a reality. It's only a prediction. We do not have a lot of time, as 2030 is only 5 years away. So doing nothing about this forecast is not an option. What needs to be done to address this contradiction, this paradox, is hefty, and we will not be able to address all pertinent issues within the time frame that we have tonight. Therefore, I propose that we focus on one aspect in line with the topic for today, the leadership required to guide us out of this quagmire. The same feature of The Economist predicts that by 2050, some 2.5 billion people, that is a quarter of the world's population, will be in Africa. The majority of these 2.5 billion will be of working age, young people. This is happening, or will be happening rather, whilst the global population is dwindling and aging. This presents an opportunity, so-called demographic dividend. This opportunity, Prof, has been with the continent for some time. I first heard about demographic dividends around 2013. But what's happening now with this focusing that Africa will be the second populous continent, 2.5 billion, this accentuates the possibility of this demographic dividend. It's something real. It's something that we can build on to turn the tide of poverty and to change the trajectory. Prof, the demographic dividend, however, does not come automatically. It can turn out to be positive or turn out to be negative. It becomes positive if we can leverage the demographic imperative to grow the African continent and to liberate the majority of Africans from abject poverty. It, however, becomes negative, a disaster, should we fail to meaningfully grow the economy, should we fail to house, to feed, to clothe, to transport, or provide growth opportunities to the 2.5 billion people. It depends how it will turn out, but a lot has to do with what do we do now. And Prof, we don't have time. Time is running out. We need to act and act now. We need to act and act yesterday. We need to get all our hands on deck to change this trajectory and ensure that the dividends turns out to be positive and not a disaster. I mentioned earlier, Prof, that the demographic dividend in Africa is not a new phenomenon. It has been discussed as far back as 2013. So we have, however, failed to capitalize on it. We have not been able to capitalize on this demographic dividend. Locally in South Africa, we have been experiencing a pedestrian growth rate of less than 2% for more than 10 years. These growth rates are barely beating the population growth rates. I do not need to mention unemployment levels that are perennial in our society, especially among youth. Earlier on, Prof, when we're discussing about the possible topic for today, I lamented on the situation in our Black townships. If you drive around the township during the day, it's a sobering story. It's a sad story. Young people loitering around, doing nothing. And because they're doing nothing, because they don't have anything to do, drug abuse, alcoholism becomes the order of the day. As stated earlier, Africa has everything it needs to succeed. Natural resources, minerals. We hear now there's a need of rare minerals. I've learned that we have rare minerals here in South Africa that the whole world is looking for. We've got a fertile land. As a continent and as a country, we are blessed with rivers, oceans, and most importantly, we are blessed with human capital, huge human capital, the envy of an aging world. In addition, we have brilliant institutions, both in the continent and locally. We've got the African Union, we've got NEPAD. Locally, we have institutions like National Planning Commission, the Ministry of Planning, Monitoring, and Evaluation, and many more such institutions, including the development banks, development financial institutions. And we're not short of plans. We've got great plans, Prof, brilliant plans. I think, if anything, we are known for, especially in South Africa, is our ability to produce very good scholarly work, policy proposals, great grand plans. But we seem to be stuck in terms of translating those plans to change the material conditions of the majority of our people. On a continent, through the AU, we've got the Agenda 2063. Locally, you remember we have the National Development Plan. Do you remember that, Prof? How many of us remember that? We do have actually the National Development Plan with an imminent deadline of 2030. The last 10-year review of the National Development Plan, that was in 2022, not long ago, stated, I quote, "Most of our economic targets have not only been missed, but are moving in the wrong direction. Objectives and targets that have to do with inequality, poverty levels, employment and unemployment rates, energy security, a low carbon economy, investment levels have all been missed," closed quote. The report continues to say, "The quality and the relevance of education and training received by our young people is of concern," close quote. At public forums, Prof, commissioners lament on challenges that stymie their objectives: a corrupt state, a disjointed planning system, poor or no implementation of plans, misalignment of this, misalignment of that. It's misalignment everywhere. That's what the commissioner say. Recently, Commissioner May stated, I quote, "The realization of National Development Plan Vision 2030 hinges on stronger collaboration between government, private sector, and civil society, all unified in shared responsibility to drive economic growth and sustainable development for long-term national prosperity," close quote. It is disappointing that only 5 years away from the deadline, 2030, we are still talking about challenges, really. Challenges. Moreover, there is now talk about starting work on another long-range plan. I mean, in the midst of us talking about these challenges, in the midst of us acknowledging that we're not anywhere close to meeting these targets, there's already talk about starting to develop another great plan. I mean, we had ASGISA, now we've got the NDP. I don't know what else is coming through. Meantime, the material conditions of our people remain the same, or they are worsening, with very little prospect of change. Why are we failing, Prof? I think that's a question. I mean, with everything in front of us, as we said, there's no reason why we should fail. My submission tonight is that we have failed and are failing due to a lack of or inadequate leadership. I think it's about leadership again, as you said in your opening remarks. The question for tonight is, what kind of leadership do we need to sustainably develop the African continent? The first cohort of post-independence era leaders in the 60s were African nationalists. They were people of strong character, visionaries of note, thought leaders, humanitarians who were comparable to the very best. We talk about the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, Kenneth Kaunda, and of course, in the late 90s, Madiba. Sadly, Prof, we have not been able to sustain that type of leadership as a continent. We seem to be facing a very serious problem as a continent, and the problem is a succession challenge. It's a succession problem. And this succession problem permeates society is not only unique to political leadership, but all social constructs seem to be challenged with succession. I think in business, we continue to see very large businesses with long history, with heredity, battling with succession. I mean, whoever imagined that an organization like APSA would battle to find a leader within its ranks, really? Um, the challenge in public sector is well known, in state-owned entities. We have a serious succession plan. The first cohort of leaders post-democracy, the leadership of SOE was excellent, brilliant, and they were able to be good stewards of the assets that they were given to. And state-owned companies did a lot to really transform the economy and change the material conditions of a lot of people. Sizwe Ntsaluba Koboto, affectionately known as SNG, owes its existence, its success to the work, deliberate work that was done and deliberate intervention that was done at state-owned entities to give opportunities to up-and-coming companies to do meaningful work and to be meaningful players in the market, in the economy. Sadly enough, we've not been able to sustain that caliber of leadership. We all know what has since happened. I mean, to take ESCOM in its heydays, which had a rating that was above sovereign rating, a corporate with a rating that is more than sovereign, that they could borrow at a rate, at a cost that is less than government could borrow. But as we know now, what has happened. I mean, you look at Pick and Pay as an example. I mean, they had to call back a pensioner, Prof, to come and lead Pick and Pay. Yeah, we have failed. I think this issue of succession, I think in the polity, we have seen that. I mean, we've experienced in the Thabo Mbeki era, economic growth rates that we've not seen. Yes, of course, the problem was there were jobless growth rates. But since the Mbeki era, we've not seen those economic growth rates. What's the problem there? My submission is that we've got a big succession problem. Permeates. I mean, at churches, you see it. Some of the big churches, when a leader dies, people kill each other. Then you get a schism that comes with that falter. Institutions that are big, large, they've got history, heredity, fall flat. So part of what leadership has to do, we tend to forget that it's about building other leadership. Yes, I'm not saying that leaders must build people who are like themselves, because there's value in diversity. But I think generally, as society, as a continent, we are failing in this succession issue. I mean, in finance, the Minister of Finance, we had to go out and get the late Tito Mboweni, his soul rest in peace. He was a pensioner, retired. We had to call him out of retirement to come and run our finances. It's an indictment on all of us. It's an indictment on us as the elite to say we can have a situation like this, where we've got richness of talent, richness of potential, but we are hardly tapping on it for the benefit of society. So there is a big need, a big drive to work on the bench, to have that generational thinking that there's always a bench, a leadership pipeline from where you can draw, and not to come to a situation where a dynamic leader leaves, then we've got a problem as who takes over. My ideal wherever I go, I evangelize that you should be in a situation where a leader leaves, retires, dies. We have a problem as who should take over because there's about 10 potential people who are equally competent to take over. But the problem that we are faced in many situations, in many organizations, in many institutions, is that we don't have anybody else to take over. And who we put forward becomes a compromise. I'm afraid that our future will be disturbed and impacted by this phenomenon. This phenomenon we really need to address urgently. Bring leaders who have a long-term mindset, who've got a generational thinking. Reflecting on the leadership issue in Africa, Prof. Nkuhlu, in his book, Purposeful Leadership for Africa, reference the Asian region experience, particularly China and India. Whilst they still experience inequality, these countries, they seem to be succeeding in getting millions of their people out of abject poverty. And there seems to be succeeding in closing the development gap with other countries. Prof. Nkuhlu argues that the growth in the regions was ignited and is sustained by leaders who had a deep commitment to a compelling purpose and dedication to serve people with diligence, serve them with integrity and unquestionable sense of responsibility. What is commendable about this type of leadership is their long-term mindset. They commit to long-term plans, and everybody around them commit to these long-term plans. But the commitment is not only to plans, the commitment is equally to execution. Execute. Their political system work in concert towards common goal that transcend the political tenure of leaders. What's also unique about the Asian region is that they use education to elevate capabilities, especially in the area of science and technology. Their multi-year efforts are paying off. India now is leading in the IT space globally. I think they've got about 3 regions in India alone that rival the Silicon Valley. China is a leader in the EV vehicles. They are eating Elon Musk's lunch. They were deliberate about this. And I mean, for China to be the second largest economy, it didn't come by chance. It was a deliberate strategy that was started way back in the 1970s, late 1970s, by Deng Xiaoping. Subsequent leaders that came after Deng continued on that trajectory that Deng laid. He laid the foundation and they built upon that. That China now is the second largest economy. And if we are careful, they will be the largest economy. They are not stopping on their tracks. They are continuing on the ideals that were planted by Deng. You see now the China Road Belt Initiative in terms of putting their influence across the globe and presenting an alternative to the American hegemony. Now contrast this, the Asian experience, contrast this to the African leadership. The current African leadership lacks common purpose. Yes, they come together, rally around, and come up with Agenda 2063, but lack of follow-through, lack of implementation, commitment. There's challenges about short-termism, losing sight of what leadership is all about. Leadership is about saving humanity. And of course, this element is not unique to Africa. I think leaders now, you will see Trump now trumping this ideal that leadership is about saving humanity broadly. We've got all these challenges, wars across many geographies, territories, largely because leaders have lost sight of that leadership is about humanity, saving humanity. Of course, maybe let's give a credit where it's due. The Agenda 2063 has already delivered the free trade agreement, but we are to see the effect of that. And we wish all the leaders, the polity, business leaders, well in really actualizing this free trade agreement for better living circumstances and material conditions of our people. So let me conclude, Prof, because it's not about lecturing. As you said, there are many scholars in here. 80% of the world's poor will be in Africa. That's when I started. Colleagues, we need to take a common position. We need to, and I plead a clarion call to all of us on the call, that this cannot happen on our watch. Yes, I know time is not on our side. We only have 5 years to 2030, but the work that we start now, yes, will go beyond 2030. But we need to do something in our respective spaces, wherever we are, do something to really make sure that we stymie this prediction, and this prediction does not materialize, not on our watch. Thank you, Prof.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, my brother. Thank you. Yeah, such a moving, um, very challenging address there about our own continent, about our own country, about what is happening. I like when you say the leadership, it's about saving humanity. Whether you, wherever, where you or angle you confront it, but it's about serving other people. If you are a leader and you are in this platform and you are not into that mission of serving other people, you must know that you are not a true leader. You are a misleader or a leaderless. So, but you are not a true leader. Indeed, we've always said, even in this platform, that South Africa, or even Africa as a continent, is awash with great leaders. But the problem is leadership. And obviously, you have mentioned some of the points that you mentioned. And thank you so much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are at the time where we can engage the speaker. For those who are joining us for the first time, you can raise your hand. There's a button there that you can do, and then we'll acknowledge you, and you can just make your point. But anyone, you are, as long as we are in this platform, we are more than welcome to engage the speaker. As we are trying to grapple with this quagmire, as my brother Victor is saying, Africa is the youngest continent. Actually, other continents, they are aging. You go to Europe, you go to other continent, Asia, they are aging. There was a time when, I don't know if that pulse is still there, Victor, when countries like Japan and Asia were actually paying people or giving people incentives or couples giving incentives to make children because the country is aging. I mean, really, to say that, please, I mean, give birth. We need more younger children. So, but our continent is a young continent, and it's so sad, as you are saying, that really, if in that prediction that in 2030, Africa will be 80% poor, or the population, a poor population in Africa. So indeed, it's leadership. It's leadership, nothing else, nothing more that we need to fix. And obviously, that is why we are here in this platform as scholars, as leaders, to say, how can we do it? You did say that we must put all hands on deck to make sure this is happening. Okay, let me not take most of your time because I'm a very generous person. I always like to give you time to engage the speaker and to assist. I see all this Sigodi there, or Sigodi. Let me take him, Odyssey, and then we'll take others as well. Odyssey, over to you.
Oh, evening, Prof. It's Policy Security. Thanks, Prof, for the opportunity. And also, before I put my question, I would like to appreciate the speaker for giving us such insight. It's we are in June now, ne? It's a month which is recognized in South Africa as a youth month. Yeah. The structure of the economy of South Africa, I read that it's a political economy. It's a political economy. Therefore, majority of politicians or majority of politics are at the center of whatever goes in our nation. So the question I have for the speaker is, how do we encourage the youth, especially youth from the universities, to be involved in these politics, so that we ensure that, or we have the right people who are in politics who will lead our country into the right way? How do we ensure that the youth, especially the intellects, the young intellects, to be in the politics so that they can assist in driving our country into the right destination? Because what we are observing now in the politics is that we having the wrong people who don't have the vision of taking this country to the right place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Odyssey. Thank you very much. Prof. Victor, any thoughts there?
Yeah, my view is that I think for one to be influential, one does not necessarily have to be in politics per se from a career point of view, but one has to be interested in what's happening in the polity. We cannot be ignorant of what's happening in the polity and in our own individual spaces to do our best endeavors to make sure that the polity is intact and yes, is populated by the right people. I think the danger that we're facing, and not only locally, but I think it's a global phenomenon, is the challenge of populism and nationalism. Because I think that's the environment is very ripe for that, because young people have got nothing to lose, and any leader that is eloquent in terms of driving a populist type of agenda of language tend to gain the votes, gain votes. I mean, you look at what happened in the States. I never imagined. I mean, if the States is regarded as the father of democracy, I mean, whoever thought that you'll have a convicted felony being a president of that country? And it's an indictment on the Americans that they found themselves to be there in that situation. So the environment there was rife for that to happen. And we have seen it locally as well, where perhaps the elite was quiet, or the elite was sitting back, and the electorate voted out of anger and put leadership that was perhaps not quite ideal to grow the growth agenda of the continent. So what am I saying? I'm saying that yes, of course, it's good those young people, we cannot all be in politicians. It's good that those young people, energetic, knowledgeable people, play active role in politics, that are gifted in that. But that does not mean anybody else who's not in politics should fold their arms, sit back. I think to a very large extent, what we have now, the government of national unity, it's a construct of social partners coming together, business leaders, civil society didn't sit back in the background. At the back, they were working very hard to really influence the politicians to say, guys, this is the best deal for South Africa Inc. to do that. So what am I saying? I'm saying, and from where I sit, in all our respective areas, be it clergy, as a clergy, or as a businessman, in whatever I'm doing, the context must be influenced by how what am I doing is changing the material conditions of our people out there. In my day-to-day activities, and of course, outside my day-to-day activities. I hope I've answered that question, Prof. Yeah.
Thanks, my brother. Thank you very much. Let me take. I'll take the two brothers there, and then maybe you can just respond to both of them. The first one will be Nkosana, and then Nkosana will be followed by my brother there, Ngobani, in that order, please, and then Victor will respond. Nkosana, over to you, sir.
Good evening, Prof. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Prof, you've brought one of my favorite leaders today. Thank you so much. And it's actually the first time that I'm in a platform with Mr. Victor. I read about him in one of the books that I recently read by Mamunonkuleko Koboto. And I have been asking myself, why is this leader quiet, never said anything to respond? But that's a question for another day. I'm very inspired by his leadership. After I have read the book, Awakened Globally, I then went to LinkedIn and followed this leader and try to find out what kind of a person is he. He is one of the exemplary leaders. He leads by example. And I really want to take my hat off for Mr. Victor. Then the question is, and thanks very much to Mr. Victor for the thoughtful presentation. It's really inspiring. The first thing that I want to mention, Prof, or ask is that not to our speaker, but in general, does our leaders have our best interest at heart? Do they want a better life for all Africans? Because there's a saying that goes as follows: where there's a will, there's a way. Meaning that if they want to take us out of abject poverty, they would take our youth, if there is a will. So I'm asking myself, if is there a will for them to change the futures of our youth? And I want to say that we've lost Ubuntu as a people in general, because when we have Ubuntu, we then realize, Mr. Victor said earlier on that when he drove in the township, what he sees there, it's painful, and it leads to crime, poverty, because they are sitting and looming around the township, and they have nothing to do. And God did not create people to just sit and idle. When people idle, they will want to find something to do. And in this case, they find themselves into dealing with crime or conducting crime activities. And I want to say, Prof, the speaker says we do not have anybody to take over when we are faced with leadership challenges. I don't believe we do not have anybody to take over. We have so many good leaders across Africa, even in our country. It is a matter of selecting or choosing the right leaders and giving the right people the right opportunity. Prof. Matola said earlier, the most difficult person to lead is yourself. I agree 100%. Firstly, it must be about self. If you can lead yourself, then you'll be able to lead others. So the problem is that we have leaders that do not have the best interests of the people. So we need to instill right values to our children, to leaders when they're still very young, so that they can build a culture of that has morality, ethics, and strong character. Then they'll be able to make a good decision in future. Thank you, Prof. Matola.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Nkosana. We'll take Ngobane and then we'll ask Victor to respond. Dr. Mangisa, my brother will come back to you after in another round. I hope you won't forget what you want to hang in there. We'll take Ngobane, then Victor will respond. My brother, Ngobane, over to you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. And good evening to everybody who is in the room. Thanks for the opportunity to pose a question to Prof. Victor. My first encounter with him, and only one for that matter, was at the launch of the book that he mentioned of the octogenarian Babu Wiseman, Lumkile Nkusu. I sat behind Bob Victor at that meeting, and I didn't know, or at that launch, and I didn't know who he was until he spoke. And then I walked past him just to read who's this gentleman who made this comment, because it came across as a very wise comment, and similar to my esteemed brother who just spoke, I did the same to try and understand the person that is here today, long before the poster came out, to know who this gentleman is. So again, as you always do so well, Prof, you have outdone yourself to bring us the best of the best, or the cream of the crop. And as he is speaking, in my mind, I'm asking myself that, as we discuss the topic of leadership, as we are doing, yes, of course, the first part is to lead self. But when we have the opportunity, like Ubab Victor has, to lead an organization, being a leader himself and understanding leadership as he does, and having explained it as well as he has, the question that comes to my mind seems to says this: can we, in the spaces of our influence, become catalysts of creating leaders? In other words, what is he where he is as leading one of the big institution audit firms and accounting firms and advisory firms and all the services that he does? What is he doing to try and bring the type of people that we need, so that we don't firstly realize that fateful prediction of 2030, which I really hope, touch wood, and with all our efforts, we don't get to that. Is there anything that he or his organization is doing? And number two, and importantly, what are his views around education being one of the tools that we can use, of course, to instill morality, to instill ethical values, to instill all of that which is necessary for leadership? Because, of course, I too am in the same profession as he is, and it's got nothing to do with our profession per se. But, we've seen how even professionals are failing at that level. But can we use education in our professional organizations or our professional settings to try at least start there where we are, to try and get this? Because we've seen, I mean, with the popular narrative of believing politicians are the leaders, because they've used that term so much that we think leadership is only through politics. Can we use the professional space to build the type of leaders that we need? Because there is definitely a vacuum of leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Brother Victor, over to you, my brother.
Wow, Prof. I'm really humbled, colleagues, the kind words that colleagues on the platform are saying. It's encouraging, and I'm glad that we of the same sort of cloth in terms of our belief around leadership, doing beyond what our day-to-day has to puts on in front of us. So, Mr. Mzizi, yes, you're right, and unfortunately, I think society, including our political leaders, broadly, we are seized with consumerism, materialism. I mean, you see when you're watching news, the type of brand clothes that these leaders flesh out, cars that they flesh out, even those that are purportedly for the poor, wearing very expensive brands. Now, with that and with the obsession of materialism, so it's then self-interest creeps in. I, I mean, somebody was making the observation that you look at the former opposition party before they were in cabinet, they were going on and on about the cabinet is bloated. Now they are part of the cabinet. They're keeping quiet, and they are saying they're enjoying the blue lights. Which is sad. Which is sad because leadership is not about self-enrichment. It's not about, acquiring, accumulation at the expense of the people that you are serving. So, yes, back to basics. Back to basics. Our social structures are broken, and starting with family in its nuclear thing. How many families are led by children? How many families don't have fathers? So there are no role players to really instill those values, Ubuntu values, instill that clothes don't make a man, don't make a woman. You are complete as you are. You don't need to be driving the latest German-made car for you to be respected, but you can achieve regardless of what it is. But unfortunately, especially in politics and in business for that matter, we don't role model that. We role model a type of success that is materialistic. I mean, I'm in the space of consulting, advisory and audit, But you can see when you engage with senior leaders in business, when they take you out, when you visited them, you can see the interest is to say, what car are you driving? I said, does it matter really? And I have all these debates with my fellow colleagues about the image of the firm, this image, a former leader threatened at one stage, I will not mention his name, he's a very prominent leader in business, threatened to take my car keys and throw them away to such a place that I will never find them, because he believed that I didn't put the firm in a good stature. But I mean, on a serious note, I think, yes, you're right. And sadly, I think even you look in the religious sector, where it preaches this wealth flaunting, and that's why people become gullible, where they're taken for a ride in terms of and aspiring to accumulate. So there's a a big need, and that we can do in our own spaces. We can do it at home, in our communities, when we go visit family, parents, in the townships, when we go to those functions. Continue to talk about this aspect, instill the values, adopt mentees. I've got a few mentees from our church. I deliberately go to a township to fellowship on Sundays. Driving through a lot of well-resourced, air-conditioned, big churches in the suburbs, but to go to deep down in the township, and it's deliberate to go and preach hope, hope values, instill them in these young people, take a few of them, coach them through, mentor them in their respective endeavors, be it studying, be it business, and engage in workshop in the township, talk about township economy, and etc. I mean, this anybody can do. You're not confined to say, let me do things that my workplace tells me to do. But even in the workplaces, we create space for volunteerism. We volunteer, we've adopted schools. We're working together with the profession to go and I think it's Novi who spoke about education. We've got a big problem with education. I think when you look at our budgets, national budget, I think about 20% of our budget is allocated to education. So we don't have a resource problem as far as education is concerned, but we have a problem in terms of return on investment that we spend. I mean, firstly, you find schools everywhere you go discouraging students not to take mathematics, take the easy route, because they don't want to disturb their pass rates. Now, when you take maths literacy, I mean, our challenge of us being technologically being left behind, perpetuate. Because when you look at those Asian countries, they were deliberate about the structure of the economy. They deliberately said that they will change the structure of the economy to be technologically driven. So, and it's not an accident that China's got their AI tools that rival the tools of the West. It is because of the deliberate strategies that they've taken. It's not an accident that they are leading in EV, electric driven vehicles. Similarly, with India, it's not by accident that they're leading in technology. And most of the brightest minds in technology you get from India. I mean, we look at the technology companies that are in the US. The majority of them are led by people of Indian descent. You see, so similarly, and that's what Prof advocates. He says that we can learn from these Asian countries, start changing the makeup of our economy such that we emphasize on technology, manufacturing, and exports, because that's how then the Asian countries have done. But it's a long-term project, 30 years. He speaks about 30 years, but it's what we start now. What we can do, we can start making maths compulsory. I mean, my former boss, Sizwe Ngasana, Dr. Sizwe, he started schools, nation schools. They're doing wonderfully well. Every student in his school is required to do maths, pure maths, and they're all doing very well. So the thesis that maths is difficult, we should not encourage people to do maths, it's a disaster for our future, for our prosperous future in terms of that. And he's just gotten his PhD. He's just received his PhD now, and is around educating educators, what type of intervention at an educator's level to do that. And And it's him then going around talking with out of his own will, time, resources. He's done research to investigate why black people, African black people, are doing badly with the qualifying exams, out of his own resources, out of his time. He's engaging with the Department of Basic Education to try start changing, make those difficult amendments and changes. I yes, I'm in agreement that we can be catalyst for leadership development in our own space. We try. Our recruitment policy. I was talking to one colleague in the business fraternity, and he was querying our recruitment strategy, because we generally give opportunities to students that would ordinarily not been given opportunities. I mean, students that come from the deep rural areas that they don't have money to study. And I'm very proud to see what some of these students have managed to do, CFOs of listed entities, NEDs, non-executive directors of large listed, unlisted entities, people of influence. And that gives one comfort that, we should not stop on this purpose of creating leaders. We've made it ourselves. We've got our own Vision 2030 now. I'm not selling SNG Grant Thornton, Prof. But we said our purpose, in terms of everything that we do, we contribute to closing this gap, what we call opportunity gap, to say we can't have a continent that is rich and yet so poor. Let's just ignite our resources, to bring reality closer to potential. Potential and reality must be one. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, my brother. Thanks a lot. Just before I take Dr. Mangisa there, I just want to check in the chat room quickly. My colleague there, Dr. Sibongselim Golozeli, saying it's interesting how some of the referenced or related topics and quoted leaders today are documented in our YouTube channel. Oh yes, to expand our understanding on the development of African and what we need to be done. It will be beneficial to you, ladies and gentlemen, to please visit our channel, and you'll find there a video by Professor Joseph Diesco. That's the one I spoke about from Germany, who took us on Quo Vadis African leadership. He did that. And then also, yes, we're also very blessed and lucky that we did host Professor Wasman Kutlu on purposeful leadership immediately after he published his book. He was here, he spoke to us, and also we did have Zipporah Maubane, who spoke about African Union Agenda 2063. So indeed, Dr. Mkoloza, it is so true that so the Victor is really visiting all these wonderful topics that we've had there, which is good. But please do check our YouTube and subscribe there. And then my brother there, Reverend Annele Bunoi, says, thank you for providing presentation. Mine has been that leaders produce leaders, but this culture got lost somewhere between generations. The generation of the Mandelas, Mbegis, etc., for me, were never intentional in cultivating an environment that prepared and produced leaders for such a time as today's. This is vivid everywhere in the world. We had exceptional leaders who never produced the next layer. Populism occupied the gap, unfortunately. It is not all lost, though. We can turn the needle bit by bit if we are intentional. That is a call to all leaders in the church. We call this program discipleship and disciple. Thank you, sir. Dr. Mangisa, over to you, my brother. You've been waiting. Over to you, sir.
No, thank you. Thank you, Prof. Majola, and thank you to our guest speaker, Brother Victor. Indeed, a very insightful and provocative masterclass you provided to us today. You did it with passion, and fortitude. And I would wish that our African leaders have the same passion, that we have shown to us today, so that they can deliver that which we are waiting for, from this lovely continent. What I have, Prof, it's not a question per se. I'm trying to add, to what Bra Victor, has raised, because we can raise so many, of these questions, but at some point in time, we need to come up with solutions, to these challenges. I want to pick up on what interests me the most in what he spoke about, i.e., the lack of succession in leadership, which has made us to be where we are, as a continent, despite the fact that we have abundance of all these strategic resources. This is how I understand, Bra Victor, to be saying, that these leadership succession challenges highlighted the need for visionary, ethical, and selfless leadership that can create enduring systems rather than personal empires. Indeed, from where I sit, I then say a true African system will depend on leaders who build legacies and not dynasties, which is what Bra Victor has said, as mentioned, while speaking. Now, for me, then, what is the solution? To move away, from these, dynasties that our African leaders have actually, built, so that they continue to lead, with selfishness. I am saying perhaps it is critical, that we begin to invest as a continent in leadership development. But the question is, how do we do that, as African leaders? And I'm saying perhaps, building or establishing Pan-African leadership academies and think tanks, it will then promote a values-based leadership, public ethics and systems. But again, the question is, how do we make sure that happens? Because it has been demonstrated that we have leaders who are very selfish, egocentric, who lead for their families. Now I am then saying, perhaps if you can try, these academies must make sure that they instill the principles, like integrity, accountability and service, which will then be essential for leaders who will then prioritize institutional legacy over personal gain. That's my take, Prof. That's my addition to what this powerful speaker, has said today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mangisa. Bra Victor, you can just respond to these colleagues, and then after that, I'll ask you to give us your your parting shots, then I'll close the. Oh, Shem, let me take before you respond. Let me take my sister there, Nomkita. Sorry, Siswama, I nearly close the door on you there. Let's check because I want once you've responded to these colleagues, then you give us your parting shots. But let's take Sis Nomkita first. Over to you, Nomkita.
Thank you very much, Prof. So that I do not take over your chair, I'm going to comply with what you say. Otherwise, my wish would have been that I would have been the last question asker, which is why I left my hand until the last time. But I will actually just ask my question. Firstly, just to thank Mr. Sekese, or is it Sikisi? I'm not sure. I'm Xhosa speaking. So yeah, just to thank our speaker this evening for his impassioned presentation to all of us. By way of introductions, my name is Nomkita Moana. I am the immediate past group CEO of the SA Post Office. I resigned at the post office last May, so end of June was my last day. So the reason I thought I should engage with you, I was very happy when I saw that you are this evening, is that I was instrumental in applying for business rescue for the post office, together with our ExCo, because we believe that that was the correct, move to do this. And SNG had the almost singular, I'm saying almost singular because they had a co-business rescue company appointed with them, but they had the almost singular honor to be and privilege and opportunity to have been appointed with this co-business rescue practitioner to assist SAPO in terms of it being rescued. So my curiosity really is the following, that when at SNG, you are doing your own navel gazing around the boardroom on the spectacular failure that has become the rescue of the post office. What is it, or what conclusions do you draw? And also, for me, this was really such a phenomenal opportunity for SNG in particular, and of course, the other rescue practitioner to shine. And this, I mean, literally. Because had the business rescue practitioners embraced the team that was there, worked with us, they could have saved SAPO in 6 months tops. And this is not just me, making or claiming easy victories. There was a plan on the table. There was a strategy called the Post Office of Tomorrow. And when we applied for rescue, we thought whoever comes across would work with us to ensure that we get to that point. I waited for a full year after the appointment. I stayed with SAPO for a full year to give them an opportunity, one, to investigate in case we were corrupt, but also to see where it is that they could use us. That did not happen. And sadly, I decided if I stay longer at SAPO, even though I am misaligned with how the rescue was being unfolding, rather, I would be staying for unethical reasons, meaning I would just be waiting to be paid and, and doing what I don't like as a leader. So I do believe that SAPO could really have been saved, but it wasn't. Now, perhaps now, this is now me talking to you, that in your analysis and your monitoring and evaluation of the project, this is a huge project for the country. It might not be a bad idea for you to just maybe go deeper than just the surface in terms of understanding what happened, how was SAPO, being rescued if it was, and perhaps for you as you deploy your what you call them resources, it might be useful to look at whether you're deploying a liquidator or you're deploying a rescue practitioner in a rescue situation. And I find that that's also part of the disconnect. And really, if they're working together with the teams that were there, it may not have been me necessarily, but some of the people that SAPO lost because of the manner in which things were being done, I think the opportunity was really squandered. I think both for SNG, but also for SAPO. And I'm afraid in my book, SNG hasn't really come out smelling like roses in this. I hope I'm not ambushing you, but I think this is about leadership. We're talking leadership lessons. We're trying to understand the practicalities of the theories that we talk about here. And when you then have to implement them, what then happens? And thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, thank you very much, Sis Nomkhita. Thank you very much. I do think definitely there's an ambush for Victor to tackle something like that. But obviously, as you are saying, that is a leadership issue, and that Victor maybe may want to engage on that one if he's comfortable to do that. If you can just respond to this, Victor, then give us your closing remarks. Then I'll close the session after that. Over to you, my brother.
Yeah, Prof. No, thank you so much. I think I've picked up two aspects. The one by Dr. Mangisa regarding Pan-African institution. I think there is room for that. There's always room and scope to have those institutions and think tanks, maybe think tanks that are properly resourced to advance leadership and make sure that there's succession, but most importantly, make sure that there's a pipeline. Because my area of concern is pipeline. To say, are we building the pipeline for the next generation of leaders in all structures, polity, business, civil society, everywhere else, as I mentioned, including church as well in its broad sense. But however, I think we have scope within the existing institutions to leverage what we have. I'm one person, Prof. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. My view is that we don't necessarily need to build additional institutions, but we need to really make sure that the institutions that we have collaborate. I know that there's competition amongst the institutions, but there's also collaboration amongst those institutions. I think I really adore and applaud especially higher education institutions where they collaborate. You see VETS collaborating with UJ, vice versa, on joint projects, exchanging talent and collaborating with global institutions as well for building that talent. What then needs to do, I mean, I don't know if I maybe need to declare my volunteerism in some of the institutions that I'm involved with. One institution have put ethics at the center of what they do. Any program that they do, it doesn't matter what the program is. Ethics is a common thread that runs through that. Ethical leaders, they say, whatever the program that you come up with, when you finish that program, we need to be proud that we've put out an ethical leader out there in that. And it's my wish that other institutions that I'm not privy to are doing the same. Of course, now we've got technology, which we all need to embrace with AI that starts to define the type of graduates that we need, the type of leaders that we'll need in a digital first environment that we are going into. And of course, with the ethical issues that, are involved with AI and technology. So on the last one, Prof, I wouldn't want to dwell too much on it for many reasons, save that I'm not intimately involved in the process as such. But I just want to highlight that the business rescue as a practice area itself it's a difficult. B it produces controversies because of the many stakeholders that are involved with differing and competing interests. So time and again, just at the generic level, Nomkita, I'm not referring to post office now, but at the general level, you do find that balancing those interests and making sure that the entity is sustainable after your intervention, it's a very challenging task and environment. And definitely, I think when you look at some of the rescue interventions, especially in public sector, continue to cause a lot of unhappiness, even well after the intervention is happened. What, however, we do as more a philosophy, yes, whether my team is consistent in that, one needs to make sure that they are consistent. Our interventions in all the areas that we do, we want to leave impact and lasting impact to the extent that we are able to do that. That's a philosophy then that drives us, aligned to our purpose of closing that gap of opportunity and reality. Yeah. So I think I've answered all the questions, but maybe as a closing remark, I'd like to thank you, Prof, for inviting me on the platform, and thank you, the colleagues that have engaged. It was quite a lively engagement. I didn't expect that. I've grown myself, continue to grow from the engagement. But what we need to do, I think we should not fold arms. I think we should continue to be interested in what's happening around us in the polity, social, and do our little bit to make a difference, albeit small. But also there's power in collaboration. In the accounting profession, maybe if I can put that way, whilst we compete fiercely with our colleagues, but on social impact, we are unified in terms of the common purpose. Unified in areas that are not directly related to accountancy for that matter. The schools project, we're channeling the SAICA resources, members' resources, to go into schools, to improve maths, to empower the educators, and to make maths sexy, and advocate with the Department of Education. Guys, please, this thing of maths literacy does not serve us. If we are intentional about it, let's just make sure that we address this. But also advocate through think tanks. A lot of the think tanks that are there, they have public participation. We were privileged as a firm. Last week, Friday, we collaborated with the Institute of Global Dialogue. It's a think tank to weigh in on this G20, weigh in and contribute through the T20, ultimately to G20, to influence policy based on our experience as practitioners, based on the experience as scholars from the Institute of Global Dialogue, packaging something together to contribute in that regard. And the more we give the think tanks a voice, a platform, so that then policy makers listen. There's a lot of thought leadership that sits at universities. My criticism, as I say, I volunteer to university, so I can at least comment on that. The criticism of the higher education institution is that scholarships just ends among scholars, and therefore does not serve society. I think the challenge I give to scholars who may be in the call is to, how do we make scholarship available to the men in the street? How do we make our scholarship available to policymakers and not tire, make noise and rally around until policymakers hear us. And we go to those platforms, influence policy as such. Yeah, that's my parting part. It's a big task, but if we start doing, as like I say, it's urgent. We need to increase, the agency on that matter. I read Prof. Nkuhlu's book over December, and I myself was really inspired. And I said during December that I will really double down on my little efforts on this thing, then and urge my colleagues, everybody that I come around to say, let's double down as such. And because we are able, yes, we may not be able to achieve it in 2030, but certainly we will be able to achieve it by 2050 and turn that demographic dividend into a positive dividend and not disaster. I thank you, Prof. I thank you, colleagues. Thank you.
My brother, thank you so much. Let me just check the chat. Victor Songelwa, thank you so much, Prof. Majola, for bringing in Mr. Sikese to this forum again. Indeed, there's so much to be done to turn things around. We need to go back to basics, materialism, and greater some of the sources of our leadership problems. And then Sis K2 Mpofana, thank you, Prof. and Mr. Sikese, for the platform and the thought-provoking insight. This challenge is beyond just succession planning. Most companies have succession plans and personnel, but when it comes to opportunities being made available to take on, the politics tend to ignore the candidates and bring connected individuals. This matter needs brave leaders to see prepared candidates taking on the opportunities. Thank you for the platform. Yeah, this was Khulufela, I want to express my sincere gratitude for hosting such a powerful and thought-provoking webinar on leadership. The insights shared were not only intellectually enriching, but also deeply inspiring. And then we've got Ketiwe and Dr. Mangisa there thanking you, and my brother Victor. Once again, thank you. I want to suggest something. We've had, as Dr. Sibongiseni said in our chat, that we've had so many different topics, obviously, discussed here. And the question is always, we've got great speakers who come and talk, but the question is, so what? Okay, we discussed this thing, we're intellectuals, we've got top intellectuals in the platform, we've got senior executives, as I said, from public sector and private sector, whether they're board members or executives, and also community leaders. But the question is, so what? I don't want us to become the platform of what is the bunch of complainers or just criticizing. But I'd really like, and obviously I'll still engage colleagues, maybe who may guide me how best we can handle this, that if we can maybe find time, even if it may be a workshop, where we can gather together and look at the solutions or proposals, where we can say we've got these huge challenges and dynamics and problems in our country and in our continent. From one platform, from one perspective, as colleagues, or as intellectual, this is what we propose. And I like what Victor's just spoken, or rather mentioned now, the session you had together with Institute of Global Dialogue. Luckily, also we had Dr. Tembu here, who was a few months ago from the Institute of Global Dialogue, who addressed us. To say, really, then yes, we've got this, because at the end of the day, we want to really, and I'm so touched and moved by what Victor is saying. 2030 is just around the corner, and there's so many things. Obviously, I know that the government will be having its own plans and all those things, but sitting from outside as scholars and as leaders, are any proposals or solutions that you want to put there to say that, look, maybe if you can do it like this way, maybe this might assist, or this is what is. So I don't know what you think, but I really, as Victor was talking tonight, to me, I'm saying, and yes, indeed, and out of this platform, the intellect that we have, we don't want to waste what we have. Maybe why don't we just put things together and see if there's anything that we can put together. If we propose and give them something and they don't do anything about it, at least we would have done something, rather than to be seen as scholars and intellectuals. Some of us were even analysts. They're just so good in criticizing government and criticizing, but they don't come with solutions, So probably, I don't know what you think, Brother Victor, but also even my colleagues in the platform, as I'm saying that I'm going to engage you and say, let us discuss and see if there's anything that we may do or organize where we can just meet and discuss it. There we'll be just talking about solutions. We know the problems now. We know the challenges. We cannot be preaching to the converted and go there again. We're talking about our problems are these. No. When we get there, if we do get in that session, we'll be just saying, someone will be facilitating there. I want that person to say, what are solutions? Obviously, not in that simplistic way, but we are here. We are here to discuss solutions. What are you talking about? So I see a comment. Oh, Victor. Thanks, my brother. Brother, dear Prof, need to be done. Indeed, we will engage and see how best we can do it when we have time. Sis Nomkhita Mona is our member here, very valuable member. If we need to facilitate some meeting or something, obviously offline, I would like to do that, so that if there anything, obviously I do definitely understand that you could not do it justice to deal with the issue in this platform. But indeed, if maybe there is a need to do that, probably we'll do that so that we can see how best we can facilitate that. But my brother, thank you so much. Thank you so much once again. As I said, I know how busy you are. You run a very big institution. I didn't even know that the people that were coming from your institution, as Nomkhita said, the business. What do you call? I nearly said the business. Viewers, the business. Rescuers, yes. The rescuers. I didn't know that they're coming from your company, but I know that you run a huge company. We are very proud of you, the work you do, and this we are still going to engage with you further. But thank you so much for a very impactful and insightful, informative, and instructive presentation that we had tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, to those who joined us for the first time, please do remember we meet every Wednesdays. Do come next week again. We'll be having another powerful speaker, as we always do, and another interesting topic. We meet every Wednesday, same time, same place, same details, everything the same. And please do come back. Let's just discuss this leadership. But as I said, discussing, we need to come to a page where we can say solutions. We can't keep on discussing without a proposed solution. So I'm very, very strong on that one. And then I see Sis Nomkhita is supporting it. And yes. we are supporting, or we want to say something quickly?
I wanted to say something, Prof. It was a joint rescue between SNG and another company. So I don't want them to take the flag on their own. just for making sure that the information is on the table. Thank you, Prof.
Wonderful. Thanks, my sister. Thank you so much. The session is adjourned now until we meet again next week, Wednesday. Thank you so much for attending. May God bless you and may God bless Africa. Thank you so much. We'll meet again next week, Wednesday. Thank you. Goodbye.